lot of this conversation, and they should have been in the room, so hey, what can I say? They haven't made it. That's their tough luck. But so, now, Kenny.
And now, are we live, Jen?
We are live
on the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. But if you're not watching it right now, then it's going to be pre-recorded, but it'll appear live to you because that's the kind of people we are. We are like that. So welcome to the SoundBroker Mastermind. This is our 38th one. Could you believe it? 38th. I don't know who can divide by, let's see, how many of that? That's 38. We've been doing this for a long time now. Unbelievable. 38 weeks in a row. I'm very impressed that I've been able to stick with anything this long. So, well, as we all do. But the reality is, this is a show where we all talk about what's going on in life, how we're going to survive these tough times so that we are here when COVID is over. But we do it in a very light and lighthearted manner, and everybody's invited to join us. Just remember one thing, that everything that you hear today is an opinion. You need to check it out yourself to validate whether it's true or not. And so we're just here to have some fun and share ideas. And this is the cheapest psychoanalyst. If you want to save some money and not go to a psychiatrist, come here. This is it. It gives you a chance to catharsize what's on your mind. So, hey, welcome everybody.
Stop with the big words, Jen. Big words. No, man.
Well, the catharsis.
And by the way, Jen, good thing we're live, because consider the alternative. Dead?
Yeah, that's right. There you 100%. If we weren't live, we'd be watching the impeachment hearings right now. So I don't know if anybody's been watching them. It's they're very exciting, but the whole, not getting into any political aspect, but have you noticed that the meme now is they're comparing these trials on one side to My Cousin Vinny? Has anybody seen those memes? It's like hilarious,
Oh, is that right? That's quite a slap in the face then, eh?
Well, I don't know. My Cousin Vinny was like one of the best movies ever made, It's
but
like
it wasn't exactly the best courtroom scenes ever, right?
Well, Joe Pesci's side was, but they're comparing them to the public defender. I forgot the guy's name in that, but he was the one who had the stutter and he couldn't get out his words. But it was the sack of suds where it all took place. By the way, the sack of suds. So, who wants to start it off? Who wants to say something?
I want to take a moment and point out that for those of you who think this call is a waste of time, we've already learned 2 new words today that didn't exist 5 minutes ago, and that My Cousin Vinny was one of the best movies ever.
Top 10. It compares to like Gone with the Wind and the 10 Commandments.
I might just have to watch it again.
High up.
Oh, please.
Are they making The Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard of Oz. That's pretty good.
I saw that. I saw they're remaking it. I didn't see any details though about it. Just that they announced they were going to remake it.
Who's going to play Dorothy?
Taylor Swift.
I would say if it's not Ariana Grande, I'm not going to watch.
I'm just making that up.
Taylor Swift.
I think it's going to be RuPaul.
Didn't they make
the Wizard of Oz drag version?
They did do a version of the Wizard of Oz. They called it the Wiz, and I'm trying to remember who was the lead in that.
Stephanie Mills.
It was really good.
That was the play. I'm sorry, that was the Broadway version, not the movie.
I can't remember.
Was it Diana Ross or something?
No. It was a young Black artist. She was really excellent in it. I forgot who it was, but she was.
Who's
really
got the Google up?
Somebody Google it while we're talking about other things. So anyway, anybody here get any news with the PPP loan? Anybody in the room have anything with PPP? Ken?
Oh, I just got an email today from Bank of America that they're going to release the super easy to ask for forgiveness application like in a few days, and it's going to take me 15 minutes or less, and I'm not going to have to submit any paperwork. It's going to be so easy. It's going to be great.
That's for the first one?
Yeah, that's for the first one, right?
Oh, we just got our second one last week.
Oh, cool. I just got my second one last week also.
Last week, too.
For those of you thought that the first one, you're working on your second one because the first one was too hard, Well, the second one's a lot easier. That's all I can say. And now for some real news. So as you all know, have been following for the last 140 days, Bank of America has closed my bank accounts and froze $26,000. I've written to every organization that's got 3 letters in it to help me get my money back. The SBA, the FCC, the FDA, it doesn't matter. I wrote to everybody. And the Office of the Controller, which is OCC, and they all said, well, we'll do what we can, but nobody did anything. But yesterday, in the mail came the check for $26,000 back from Bank of America with a letter saying, hey, if you'd like to reopen your bank accounts, we'd love to have you as a customer. And I said, there's no chance. So it was a good day for me yesterday. And if you are in one of the states that DreamSpring, I believe it's dreamspring.org, if you're in one of the states, they are by far the easiest and simplest way to get qualified for that second round of PPP. From the time I applied online till the time I received the money, it was less than 10 working days. So really, really good. What was your experience? Anybody else have an experience with this that they want to share?
I submitted 10 days ago and it's just crickets at the moment.
No, how did you submit?
Just electronically through the bank. There was a lot of problems with it the first week is through TD Bank. And miraculously by like the 9th day, it seemed okay. I decided the next morning I would just, be ready and prepared with everything I needed. And it wasn't too bad, but I wouldn't have cared if it was bad. I just would have been happier if I did it and then was done already. So we'll see how long that takes.
Mm-hmm. So now what's happening with the other side of the loans that you were working on with the Save Our Stages? Did you do any research on that in the meantime?
I've been back and forth a bit with Mike Strickland on this, and we've been talking about it. He seems to feel that there is because production companies are not specifically excluded, that it appears they may be included. He is trying to get some more clarification. I'm supposed to speak tomorrow morning with the SBA lender that I mentioned, who is on the weekly calls with the state SBA reps on a national call. And I was hoping we were going to speak today and I could say something before this, know something before this meeting to talk about, but I'm continuing to stay on it. The one thing that the lender did say, and I'm sure I repeated this from last week, when the time comes, which will be any day, the SBA needs to be absolutely deluged with emails talking about the inequity of the venues versus the production companies, simply because we're inextricably linked together and we're all in the same boat. And nobody's looking to take anything away from venues. We want to be around to support venues. So we'll see how that develops. But I also had emailed this consultant and said, should we also go to the old-fashioned snail mail? And let's let the mailmen show up with a couple of thousand letters a day in mail bags. I don't know if they know how to do that anymore in Washington, but that would be interesting to see. And maybe that'll get their attention. But the guy did say, if you'll get your attention by bombarding them. That's the only way.
So a couple thoughts, Eric. I would think that production companies are actually worse off than venues.
Yes.
Because of the higher the higher labor pool. You've got way more people working for you or counting on you to give them work than the venue itself. And I mean, I'm not in the production world, but just in the venues that I work with, doing their maintenance and their upgrades and installations and stuff, that's what I see is usually the venues maybe have a dozen people full time, but when there's a production, there's 50 people there.
Right. I mean, the venues have to have a core staff. I mean, somebody's got to manage it. Somebody's got to book it. Has to be a chief engineer. There's a lot of functions that they need. Of course, you can certainly pare it all down, and except for an on-site engineer and security, there's no reason for anybody to be there. They're better off at home. But for them to even start getting ready to do business, they've got to have certain people on their staff.
Right. For example, the Smith Center here in Las Vegas, I don't know if you've ever been, that's our big, fancy, the nicest venue in town. It has 3 people on staff right now and has for about 5 months.
Well, they certainly need to get their staff back because, there's like in any venue, there's maintenance to do. Right. Can't reopen and have some mechanical systems or other problems. The question really is, and they staff up obviously per event, it staffs up, security, stagehands, ticket takers, ushers, box office, people selling the merch, concessions. There's a ton of people there. Not all of them are part of, could be considered employees, since I think some are outside concessionaires. But on the production side, the production companies generally would have a larger staff than many local venues, whether it's an arena, theater, what have you. And we certainly do. We cover a number of arenas, but we're in the same boat. It doesn't matter how many we have or don't have. Bottom line is, everybody I know, the revenues is off more than 90%.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is in the letters, that's the point I would make, that, hey, so much, thank you so much for looking out for the venues. But if you look at it, Madam Senator or Mr. Congressman, the production companies, the concessionaires, the traffic management people, all that.
Parking, merchandise.
Yeah, all that adds up to way more people than the venue itself. So you'd want to make sure something is in there to take care of those companies. So that's the tack I would take for sure.
There's no question. I mean, as I was driving home to get on this call, I did hear that they just announced in New York, starting sometime in February, 10,000 seat or greater venues are allowed 1,000 people. So, I mean, for sporting events where TV rights, pay enough to keep the venue going, they don't need anybody. But that'll be great for the venues because they can put people to work, and the fans, of course, can get out there. But I mean, you go to the Garden, over 20,000 seats. What's 1,000 people? It's like looking at a field that's been 90% mowed down, and there's a couple of corn stalks there. So
1,000 seats won't even pay to heat the building.
Well, exactly. There's a high cost, but they're doing it anyway. They're really doing it anyway for the sporting event, et cetera, et cetera. To hear it today, it's a start. And then Randy Phillips was on the news. I don't know if anybody knows Randy. He was head of AEG for 13 years. He produced tours with Michael Jackson and Bon Jovi, a lot of other people. So in the interview was saying, "Isn't this great? We're going to see a lot of music." And basically said, "No, you're not." Said 1,000 people. I mean, 1,000 people is not going to pay the IA bill. Just not.
Don't the cardboard cutouts pay for something to be there?
I think there should be a seat license for the cardboard cutouts.
Some of my best friends are cardboard cutouts.
Well, but
there is at least one tour going on right now. They're doing some shows in Texas and in Florida with reduced audience sizes, but regular production. I forget what the guy's name, Toby something, Christian artist.
Well, the bottom line, back to PPP and the
It's Toby Mac.
Yes, it is.
Somebody's got a drone.
So now, would that be something that Ken Porter would want to talk about?
Well, there is some shows. They have been doing some drive-in stuff too. Toby's been out doing things, but I'm seeing people going into Texas doing shows in Texas. And in fact, I mean, Austin boy, you were asking about earlier about shows. Saw that they booked Miranda Lambert for 3 nights, sold out 3 nights already at Billy Bob's. I think it was March or 1st of April or whatever. So there's dates going on. I have most.
What kind of sold out though? Socially distanced sold out or full capacity?
I don't know, but you look at the Garth Brooks thing. He's sold 2 stadiums already, and one was 84,000, I think, in Charlotte, and the other was in Cincinnati at 80,000. So I'm sure that's not socially distanced.
That's right. Garth
Brooks.
It's April 10th on Garth Brooks, April 10th at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Paul Brown Stadium on the May 1st. And then he's got July 10th at Allegiant here in Vegas. That might happen. It might not happen, but Live Nation right now is starting to sell tickets. And The Weeknd, who was on the Super Bowl, we can talk about that as well. But the reality is that they opened up their tour for 2022 and they've opened up 103 dates, I believe, 102 dates, 103 dates. So things are starting to happen. Also, I will tell you that the Hard Rock in New Jersey is doing some shows, but they're doing small shows right now because they're limited to 150 people into their big showroom, which basically, as somebody said, it's not enough to turn on the heater, you know, so they're handing out sweatshirts and coats and they're charging extra for that though. So
Right.
That's
and I think
in
you'll
Atlantic City,
find-
Jan?
I'm sorry, what was that, Ken?
I was just wondering, you said New Jersey. Is that Atlantic City?
yes, that
And
would
a
be
Trump
Atlantic
property.
City. Which brings our reporter from New Jersey, Eric Todd, to the forefront to talk about it.
There isn't much to say about Atlantic City. The casino, the casinos are open. I don't know if the tour buses are running down there, and it's very limited, but they're doing things. It's socially distant. I don't really know much about it because on the smaller side, they're self-contained for all of that. So it's hard to. I mean, I haven't seen anything about any headliners coming to any of the casinos. Not that I look for it, but I haven't heard it. I haven't seen anything on the news, so I don't really know what they're doing down there. But around New York City, which is our backyard, I mean, other than things that are being talked about are going to, like Justin Bieber's, I think July 23rd at the Garden. I doubt that's happening. I hope it does, but I doubt it is. It's a lot of talk at this point. And
I think they're trying to sell as many tickets as they can and hope for the best and hope that 80% of the country is vaccinated by July, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
I don't think it's that at all.
What do you think it is, Mike?
I think they're selling a bunch of tickets and they're daring the local government to do anything about it.
That's exactly it.
And you'll notice that's why Florida and Texas are so popular, because they're safe bets right now. North Carolina to a certain degree. The local government isn't going to do a thing about it. Those shows will happen. Ohio, I'm not sure. Cincinnati, Jersey, that's why they're staying small. New York, that'll be interesting. But they're doing a little bit of gambling that by then there's enough vaccinated and enough, but mostly they're just going to sell and they're going to dare the governors to do anything about it.
So it actually could be more than that, though. I heard a stat today that they said 82% of concert fans have chose to hold on to their tickets instead of getting a refund. So Garth Brooks goes and sells, someone said 80,000 tickets. That's millions of dollars. To cancel the event, only 82% get a refund, and someone's sitting there holding millions of dollars for 6 more months. How much money are they going to make on that? So that's a possible, motivation for them to be selling. Who would sell an 80,000 seat venue right now for, what someone say, April? Makes no sense.
Dr. Fauci could.
Bless his heart. Wasn't that July in Vegas? July in Vegas is not a good time to have an outdoor concert. Is that stadium air conditioned?
Yeah. It's a stadium.
Now, somebody mentioned Dr. Fauci. Did somebody mention Dr. Fauci?
He's in the room.
We all know Robert Scovel, and we know that this guy's got a set of ears that, and on his show on Friday, and if you haven't been up to his show on the back lounge, I urge you all to go up there. But he said that I sounded like Dr. Fauci, and he was convinced that I was Dr. Fauci because he said he's never seen me and Dr. Fauci at the same time. So what do you guys think?
I think
I don't think you're Dr. Fauci. I don't think you're Dr. Fauci, but I thought that was pretty funny that he thought you had the same accent or same voice as him.
We probably both came from Queens. That's probably what it is.
Probably
both came from Queens. So Ken, what were you thinking? What's going on with the Christian acts down in the South?
Most of them are coming back and starting out. There's one-off stuff. I'm seeing more one-off stuff between March, April, May, and tour runs. I don't see them kicking up till late June in Christian. In country, most of the headline tours and stuff are hitting out. They're doing one-offs April, May, June, and got string of dates starting in July. Some of there, it's around. Even the Red Rocks was at, I can't remember. We have a country act there's 2 dates booked already, back to back 1st of May at Red Rocks. So, there's stuff coming. There's people starting to do stuff. I don't know. We keep on. Now, as far as Christian wise, I ended up the other day looking at it and it says we're up to 7 tentatives for Easter weekend right now. So I can't complain about that.
When's Easter weekend? What's that, April something?
April 4th and 5th.
That's crazy.
Nah, but here's what you're going to see now. I haven't read the brief yet, so I don't fully understand the reasoning. But churches in California recently won a court battle that declared either part or all of Governor Newsom's restrictions on attending churches unconstitutional. So 5 will get you 10 that you're going to start seeing Christian artists performing at churches during service.
You know, and when all of this blows up, we're going to be right back where we were in December.
Yep.
This is what will totally hose a fall winter recovery for us if this kind of stuff blows up and turns into super spreader events.
Well, that except if there is the vaccine. And right now, the vaccines are starting to really get out there. I mean, so a bunch of us in the room now, I've heard, have gotten vaccines, right?
That's because you're all old cranky guys. For those of us just barely under the age of 65, at the current rate of vaccination in Kansas, I cannot qualify for my first dose until November.
That's gotta speed up, Tim. It's got
to go 10x, or we're all sitting here just pissing in the wind.
Well, come to New Jersey. Wow. You can be a tourist and get in October.
You could be a snowbird and go to Miami.
Yeah, but Jersey in October. No, actually, you can't go to Florida now. They fixed that. You have to be a resident. And you have to have ID.
Well, Chris is in the room. Chris Carlton is in the room. So what do you have to say about that? What is the facts, or your opinion on the facts of what's going on in Florida?
The latest change that I've seen in the
Wait a second, we need some music.
Exactly. Was that, yes, you did need to show ID. You needed to show some kind of proof of residency. But what I heard before that was that you could have proof of part-time residency down here, which a lot of snowbirds have. They come down here and they'll rent a place for a few months. That's acceptable.
Yeah, you do have to demonstrate an actual connection, though. You can't just drive in from Alabama.
Yeah, you have to show like, a bill from some bed and breakfast or some Airbnb that you're staying at.
Or the lease to your RV slot.
That's a possibility too.
I'm with a bunch of people in the RV community, and the Canadians have been flying down to Florida, get their shot, and then they have their RV professionally driven, because you can still get trucks and commercial transit across the border. Private citizens just can't drive. Right. So they're getting their RVs delivered to them in Florida, and they're getting vaccinated. But they're also staying 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I've not hit 65 yet. I'm coming up to it pretty soon, but it's going to be a while before I get mine, I think. But maybe by midsummer I'll have something, so it'll be a good thing. All the events down here have been postponed to next November, because usually everything happens down here March, April, and all the outdoor events are being pushed back to November after the rainy season is over. So yeah, we'll see.
I wonder if there's anywhere we can find out. I'm just curious to know the percentage of the overall population of each state that's been vaccinated so far.
Yeah, the New York
statistic
Times
is out there somewhere.
The New York Times posts that every day.
Yeah, I gotta find that.
Is it true that
something else though with this? I mean, CDC says we're down 62% from January 8th. The Worldometer says we're down 68% since January 8th. I mean, we're new daily cases is dropping like a stone. Thank goodness.
Yeah, you reported that on the other Zoom meeting, and I heard it on the news since then. I heard it on the news, so it's definitely getting out there.
46. Now we're at 62.
Well, I think that enough people finally kind of took this stuff seriously after watching everyone get sick after Thanksgiving and Christmas, that we've seen the daily rates drop, and that's a very good thing. My concern is that humans tend to be very binary. We're either all or nothing. And I've seen that locally. The first time restrictions got lifted in the summer, everybody went out and partied like it was, 2019 again. And we, in 2 weeks later, had people
No,
lining up at the hospital.
1999.
Yeah, that was for Prince, but you know, his estate will sue me if I use the song title. So getting to be like the mouse. But no, and actually it reflects that people are capable of changing their behavior when they see an absolute need to. But the minute you tell them they can lighten up, there's not much gradation there. There's not a lot of subtlety. It's, oh, I can go back and do exactly what I did previously. And that's when we get into trouble again. You know, there's
Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
Tampa was a mess. And
Yeah.
We expect we're going to see the fallout from that within a couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, drunk people jumping on cars. I mean, what's not to love, right?
I like the streaker at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was like the highlight of the game.
I just saw some good footage of him on TikTok.
That streaker made $374,000 doing that.
How do you know that?
Are you shitting me? How do you do that?
It's on the internet. He made a $5,000 bet times whatever, so it came out to $375,000. He bet that someone would streak at the Super Bowl, and then no one would take him. Everybody took him up on that, but didn't think he'd pay in. So he jumped the fans, ran out, posted a $1,000 bill, and made $374,000 on it.
Wow. What a businessman. What a businessman. We should try to have him in the room.
Let's do that today. Let's all go to the next event and do that. I'm like, hell, I should have thought of that.
But
you know what I heard?
Did he get a fine for not wearing a mask?
No, he just got a $1,000 fine. That was it.
You know what I heard? That somebody took a bet on the fact that that Mahan wouldn't get a touchdown in the first quarter, or Tom Brady, and they made millions of dollars. Tina, you were telling me about that, right? I think you were telling me, was it you that was telling me about the bet that somebody made $2 million off of the fact because Tom Brady had
because
never
that was
scored.
Totally against the odds. The odds were that the Chiefs were going to do well. Right. And so I can imagine that would have been a really good bet in the long run to bet that the Chiefs would not get a touchdown in the first half or first quarter.
This was the first time Tom Brady ever made a touchdown in the first quarter of a Super Bowl. So the statistics were against him to do it because he's never been able to do it before.
And Pat Rose is pissed.
Oh yeah.
Well, I made $400 out of the game. I put my money on the Buccaneers winning like 2 weeks ago, and everybody said I was crazy. And I'm like, no, they're gonna win. Tom Brady's gonna let them win. The refs are gonna get paid off to let them win, and that's what happened. I'm like, couldn't be more obvious. The refs were rooting for them.
You know, just to go backwards a little bit because Brian's in the room now. What did you hear about the Garth Brooks going on at the Bank of America Stadium in North Carolina? That's right by where you are, right?
Yeah, it is. I haven't heard anything recently, but he's postponed the concert 4 times now. So he keeps waiting until it gets right at the 90-day window and then postpones it again so that they don't have to refund tickets. And there's a bunch of people in town very upset about that because they're wanting their money back. But unless he cancels the concert, they're not entitled to get their money back.
I think I hear an attorney general moment.
Yeah, I didn't know people wanted their money back. Most people want to keep that money for the.
So I've talked to a couple guys that had like 8 tickets, and now they don't know whether they want to go in and get it into a crowd in a crowded arena, you know, with or without the COVID shot. I mean, the one guy I talked to, he had over $2,000 worth of tickets. He said,
$2,000 buys a lot of groceries.
Right.
Yeah, sure does. It sure does. So what else is going on? What's going on now? So did we cover everything about the Christian tours? Did you get through all that, Ken?
Yeah, I got through the Christian tours, but the question I have is, Disney has been open, you know, since back in the August or whatever, down in Orlando. Have they been challenged on their lawsuit about the not liable on a ticket purchase, that if you buy a ticket, it's your will, and if not, you know, you don't come in?
Don't know about that, but I don't know. But you know, today I had a conversation. Speaking of that, today I had a conversation with someone regarding the fact that people are saying, well, the concert industry is never going to come back the way it used to be because people are going to be streaming. And my position is that's nonsense, because people want to go and see live performances, because you'll never be able to duplicate what you can see at a concert event that you can home. In other words, you look around, you're looking up maybe at the guitar player or the bass player or the drummer, and then you switch to the left and you say, wow, look at that PA stack. And then you look to the left and you see some girl dancing around with a bikini on and, just voluptuous, I think the word was, and then you smell marijuana. You can't do all of that in your own home, and streaming just doesn't match up to that. For example, we all know about experiences where people just showed up. Damn the virus, I'm going to go because I want it. Like, for example, remember when it was really in the prime and the Chainsmokers did that private show and over 10,000 people found out about it and rushed it. So I really believe that we're going to be coming back, but there is going to be, when you get your vaccine, you get a card, and eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be a digital passport that's going to show that you've had your vaccines. And I am willing to bet dollars to donuts that you are going to be required to show that if you're going to fly, you're going to go into a government building, and of course, if you're going to go into a concert. What do you guys think about that? Do you think I'm on glue?
Way too many HIPAA violations for that. It's and privacy issues to require that. I understand what you're saying, Jan, and maybe you're right, but I don't see the ACLU allowing someone, Ticketmaster, to demand to see your medical records.
Well,
they're not asking to see your medical record. They're asking to see a proof of vaccination.
The problem with the vaccination is, though, that the vaccination is not a cure. The vaccination is an emergency stopgap. It's not a cure. Even the best one is only 94% effective. So we're not going to eradicate it with this round until the science gets better and we have a better vaccine that actually is a cure. Then you get your card.
I don't know. I wonder about that, because the flu vaccines are typically in the 50 to 60% effective range, right? That's what I've heard anyway. And yet we don't close down businesses for flu, and lots of people die from flu every year. And I just want to have my doubts about that.
But flu's not contagious, is
it? Isn't it?
So a couple of thoughts. I can't see HIPAA applying here at all, because HIPAA has specifically deals, well, for two reasons, actually, now I think about it. Number one, HIPAA specifically deals with the portability of your medical records and the protection thereof when your employer is moving that information around.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, HIPAA is a great law, except it was never assigned to any agency for enforcement. So if I go to, because one of the things we install is speech privacy systems. When I talk to customers about them, we gave up talking about the privacy aspect of speech privacy systems years ago, because nobody's going to give them a ticket or fine them. Nobody. There is no agency tasked with that. So we talk about the increased productivity of people who can't eavesdrop on others' conversations, and they stay more focused.
Sure.
Etc. So that's number one. Number two, we show our vaccination records to school districts, to all sorts of agencies voluntarily. And as long as I'm doing it voluntarily, to go to a private event, which is what a concert is not a public event. It is a private event that I have to pay to attend. They can ask for anything they want. They can ask for a blood
government
sample.
agency with government oversight versus some business. By the way, I don't disagree. I actually think we'll probably end up going there, but playing devil's advocate, I could say, look, this is the government. This is supposed to be made up of, elected officials and oversight and all this other bullshit. This is a private business that could take this information and do something with it.
Right, and then they're going to say, fine, don't go.
Well, you have the ability to decline that by not buying a ticket.
Yeah.
Your participation
hey
is
guys,
100% free and voluntary.
I looked into
Michael,
it.
what do you got to say?
I looked into it, and it does not violate HIPAA because it is a separate record that you are showing to somebody that's saying, yes, you've got this, or no, you don't. It is not doing any kind of background into the rest of your medical history, anything like that. It's like getting a stamp on your passport or visa. Okay. Number one. And number two, if you invite the public, if you bring the public in, sales or whatever, it is a public event. I don't care whether Billy Joe Bob put it on or the president put it on. If you've opened it and allow public access, it is a public event.
And not only that, I will tell you that I know that the airlines are definitely considering it. The World Health Organization, IATSE, and not IATSE, IATA, which is the travel agent, they're all looking into this, and it's going to be, there might even be a chip put into a passport for that. So it's possible that it could happen, because if, let's say, just for example, that just the airlines say, okay, you can't fly unless you show us proof of vaccination. Well, all of a sudden, once that first industry does it, everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon, because if they're
don't they already do that for certain countries that you go to? You can't get on a plane to, say, Venezuela unless you show proof of having had a vaccine, right?
But that's international law, Kenny, versus domestic law.
No. If you go to Hawaii, you cannot enter without either quarantining or having that vaccine or a negative test. Not a vaccine, but a negative test. You can't check in the hotel without showing proof of a negative test.
Yep.
That's a medical record.
What about those of us who are employers? What about us who are employers? What are we going to do? Are we going to require our employees to have vaccinations?
That's a whole nother thing. And
good question.
Especially as a production company, your client may require that. So now that's, now you've got a good old fashioned Washington two-step there. And
it's going to come
down. We
to
haven't crossed that bridge yet. I have heard a couple things about possibly antibody testing as being a confirmation, that you are a safe human. As opposed to the vaccine, but the big pharma doesn't want it that way. I mean, even because Fauci was asked directly, what happens if we've already got the antibodies, and he, without even skipping a beat, well, you should get the vaccination anyway. It's like, why? Now you've got double the amount of corona in you. If you've already got the antibodies, you've already got corona, period. And Tim, don't even start with the double thing, okay? Because the probability of somebody catching it twice is so infinitely small.
Yeah, and if you're the son of a bitch in the hospital, it doesn't matter how infinitesimally small it was to
someone else. But
else.
if you're the son of a bitch that slipped and fell in the bathtub and broke your hip, you don't care about that. I mean, come on.
Well, if the son of a bitch slips in the bathtub, I hope they don't have COVID.
What you guys are bringing to the front is this is a game of percentages. It's totally about percentages. We're not, unfortunately, Tim, as much as our friends or people that we know have had COVID twice, they're in the minority to a great degree, and it's a very small percentage. So that's what we can't cater to them. We're catering to
my point
the lump in the middle,
My point is that relying on that as a guarantee that you will not be a hazard to yourself or others in the future. That's why Fauci is saying you should get the vaccination anyway.
Sure, I happen to agree with that, but that may not be popular opinion.
No, I have to stand up for myself as speaking as Dr. Fauci right now. I will say that you are 100% correct. But the thing is I just got a letter from the Hartford Insurance Company, and the headline was, "Can you ask your employees to get vaccinated?" Unfortunately, I didn't read it, so you'll have to. This is like, tune in next week and we will have the answer.
I can tell you what the lawyer said.
Jan, to that effect, the EEOC is supposed to be coming out with some guidelines in the next week or two, because they're working on this. But the standpoint that I understood on this is as an employer, you can't do that because then it becomes a HIPAA violation. But a client can make that as a stipulation for a contract. And then so you can comply it with the contract requirements for your contract, which then your employees have to volunteer to give it, but you can't mandate that as a employee.
Yeah.
But the EEOC is supposed to be making
Here's something.
guidelines.
Here's something I heard. The local grocery stores, I heard, are offering an incentive payment, like $100 extra to each grocery worker that gets the vaccine.
Kroger's has announced they're doing that nationwide, and then that's how they're tracking it, is they're tracking it through the payment, but then that's a voluntary basis. But they also feel that it's worthwhile for their employees to get it.
But the corporate clients are going to ask for it. And the challenge on the production side is, and I just learned a hard lesson a week ago. A crew of 4 showed up at a venue for a taped event for Red Bull. And they tested each person with a rapid test as they walked in. One of the 4 tested positive. So they sent 4 guys home. And technically, as an employer, you brought them to work, so you got to pay them. Had to scramble to get 4 more guys there to get this thing together. But going forward, you're going to have to require, if the clients require it, and I can't imagine that they won't, you've got to make a deal with your crew. You don't have to work on the event, but the client requires it. So we're not telling you to work the event or not work the event. We're just telling you that the client is not accepting you on the event. And so you end up having to say to the client, to comply, you have to pay a guy, for example, or a female, half a day's pay. They'll go get tested. They'll stay home and quarantine for 2 more days, and they'll come and get another rapid test. And if you don't do that, and then you send your crew and there's another problem with guys going home, you're bearing all that expense. And it gets, it gets expensive very quickly when you got to swap out crews immediately. And it's just not fair to the other guys on the crew. It's a huge problem that everybody's got to figure out how to get their arms around.
Eric, what a lot of people have been doing
with
is sending double the amount, to a show site like that, and putting the other half in a hotel isolated, so that if something like this comes along, you're covered. I mean, it's still double, but they've also worked out, kind of like we'll split the cost with you, with the client.
Well, that makes sense.
What I'm doing right now.
Fred.
It's just
Fred,
that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm sitting in San Diego because I came to be a backup audio for college basketball tonight. So I'm heading home now because they're all there and they're setting up. But they flew me over here to be a backup. So I sat in a hotel after getting tested.
Hopefully it was Hotel Del Coronado.
No, not quite that nice. I did get to go down to Little Italy though. It was kind of fun last night.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So let's see. Who hasn't spoken? Who hasn't spoken and would like to say something about this? Because it's just an opinion. Ron, what about you? What's going on up there in Canada? How are you feeling about that up there?
We're still locked down. We're still in lockdown here for another week, and then they're going to split Ontario into sections. Toronto will be another probably 1 or 2 weeks in lockdown, and we're going to loosen it up next week, Wednesday, I think. Then all of a sudden we can do the restaurants will open up again, and barbers and that kind of stuff. But it'll be very limited, and we're very, very regulated for everything. Like everybody's, there's no messing around here. Like you. They close us down in a heartbeat here if they think it's getting unruly. We had 20 cases in this area today, and that's it. But overall in Canada, it's coming down. But the vaccine rollout here is horrible right now, which is kind of bizarre. But we're doing a piss poor job of the rollout in all of Canada right now. So we're not. As I sad to say, but I don't think we're going to see festivals this year at all, and that's it. And there's no talk about opening the border between Canada and the U.S. That will probably stay closed. I mean, there's just no way that anybody wants to open it up right now. So, yeah, it's not great. We won't be seeing any work for a while. Got a bunch more companies went out of business. I think 3 more now. Went auction. I'm getting auction notices almost every day now for the rest of the companies. They just keep on tanking. So that's not great either.
Now, I thought the Canadian government was giving you guys money to stay alive.
Yeah, it is. It is giving us money. I mean, we got another grant now. We just filled out a grant form and got, approved within 5 or 6 days for 20 grand, no questions asked. And they've done tons of stuff. Guaranteed government loans where government guarantees it, so you could pretty much anybody can get it, any legitimate business, and you get 60 grand and you got to pay 40 back if you start. I think it's 2022. You got to start paying back. And if you pay back at that point in time, they forgive 20 grand is forgiven on those bank loans. So there is tons of stuff going on, and the wage subsidies are great. I mean, that's what's keeping the doors open for most of the guys. The government's paying 65% of your wages comes back to you every month, and that's been a lifesaver for pretty much anybody. But it's the high rents, guys who've got paying 15, 20 grand a month in rents that are having a hard time. I mean, 1 or 2 months of that, you're probably okay, but then after that, it starts to get a little rough, and that's the problem. I think a lot of these guys are finding that they just physically can't keep their spaces going. The cost of operation is too high. So I'm out of the middle. I'm in between, basically sort of in between Toronto and Detroit. So I'm in an area the taxes are lower. We own our own buildings. We've diversed into a bunch of different things to sort of keep a bit of the revenue going. So it's a little bit different, but a lot of guys who are, hardcore production guys, they're having a tough time. And the government's been great. I mean, people bitch about the government here all the time as well, but the reality of it is they've been really good. And even with the forums and stuff, and there's been nothing difficult. It's all been relatively easy, and the money is deposited directly into your account within a few days. I mean, it's really been as good as it can be. But we were all hoping, sort of like you guys, but we were all hoping for the vaccines to get rolled out, and we thought that we were just it was just happening at a really good pace, and now all of a sudden we're it's terrible. So we don't, like I said, at this point we see losing the entire summer, and for us, because we're such a seasonal country, that's it for us. I mean, we'll back to corporate stuff in the fall and the winter, but I mean that's not our meat and potatoes. It's all the outdoor festivals that are going to be gone. So kind of sad.
Well, I'm seeing, that you opened up two different subjects there. Number one is about the vaccines. And now here in the United States, FEMA is starting to get actively motivated in distributing the vaccine. Also, the National Guard is now getting involved in that. So we might have an accelerated growth, especially if Johnson & Johnson's gets approved. And then there's the Novacek, I think is the other one, AstraZeneca. So we could have 5 or 6 vaccines starting to circulate, distributed by FEMA and the National Guard here, and we could really start moving very quickly. That might accelerate also up into Canada if they see what we're doing and they see that what we're doing works, right?
Well, we had a bunch of vaccines that we had ordered from that were supposed to come in from Europe, and the Europeans decided that they were going to halt those because they felt that they were going to keep those vaccines for the European Union instead of shipping them over. So, and always our kind of nice guy image at that point kind of bites us in the ass, because, we're like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea. We just, we're not, we just don't have the might to, I think, to sort of be angry about it. So, I mean, like it's working, it's trying. We have spent a lot of money on vaccines. I mean, we've already been criticized by different countries for, wait a second, Canada bought, 10 times what their population is. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but we don't have it. I mean, it hasn't arrived. So it's kind of useless. And yeah, we have purchased way more than we're ever going to need. Well, and if we get it, I'm sure that we'll give it away to somebody who needs it. But right now, we're in a situation where we're just not getting it, and I don't know if that's going to change or not.
Yeah, well, we sure hope it does because we all need it. Like here in Nevada right now, it's 70 and above. First responders, they're fighting about school teachers. And the other thing that's going on is that the website hasn't been updated since January 18th here, which is really frightening. But on the local news, I heard that they were going to do certain things to escalate the vaccine distribution here. So hopefully that's going to change here. But the other thing that you brought up,
relatives in Florida who have been vaccinated.
Yeah, I think David Dansky, aren't you going for your second vaccine? And when I'm sure that, yeah, there you go.
Going on Sunday, my second shot. It'll be a great feeling to have it, that's for sure.
So, and my friend Michael from New York, he's going for his second shot. So I know a few people. And Kenny, aren't you now getting a shot in California?
Ventura County opened up to 65 plus, so like a couple days ago. Soonest appointment I could get was Friday, so I'm going on Friday. And
did you get some phony ID or something like that? Because you're not
yeah,
65,
that's it.
are you?
No. I got it jacked up. The kid at the corner store set me up. But what I was going to say was, how long, David, after the second shot until you're like totally 95% effective?
I don't know. It's got to be a week to 10 days, but I don't know the answer to that yet. But I'm figuring around, week to 10 days.
I say, let's ask Dr. Fauci. All right. And the answer is,
so with the rules being,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm getting the Pfizer vaccine. So whatever it is, I'll find out. I'm on a need to know basis. I'll know after Sunday.
So with the rule of most states being 65 and older getting vaccines, that means it's only going to be us old guys that are going to be able to get back to work.
Yeah.
Well, that works for me.
Well,
being an old guy.
Very gradually.
Hey, Steve, what's going on in Louisiana over there?
65 and older, yeah, as far as the vaccine. But from what I understand, we've gotten a pretty good load of it down here just recently.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister-in-law works at a hospital, and she said they offered relatives over 65 that they can come in like now. So I was able to go in today and get it.
Now, and now you mentioned relatives, is anybody hearing that? Because I've heard this from a few different people that they get the vaccines and it's scheduled, but somebody can't show up. So then the pharmacist or the person giving the vaccine is calling their friends and relatives and saying, hey, is there anybody in the group and we can have them come down right now? Is that happening in anybody's state other than California?
I heard in Dodger Stadium, if you show up at the end of the day, chances of getting a shot are pretty good, no matter what your demographics.
The same in New Jersey.
So it's like Broadway. You can get in the cancellation line.
Yeah, 2 for the price of 1 too. That twofers, you can get that. So Brian Scott, he's our ADA expert, and because he's an ADA expert, he knows everything about everything science and medical. Brian, why don't you chip in some information right here for us? What is the time frame when you get the second vaccine? How good are you to go?
I've heard multiple answers to that. And I think as David referred to, it depends on the type of vaccine. I heard initially it was 2 weeks after you got the second one, but I haven't heard much on that lately. So that would make sense if your first one's coming back up, 2 weeks later. So about all I know on that.
Well, there you go. You've heard it from the expert. That's all so now we know what's going on. So now also Ron mentioned grants, and Michael Strickland had mentioned the fact that the Verizon grant was out there. Did anybody apply for that Verizon grant? Did anybody get the Verizon grant? Let's talk about it. So Steve Sluter, why don't you go first? And then after that, anybody else who raised their hand, just go right after him.
No, we applied for it, but it's really geared up mostly for minorities, I believe. I don't know if we'll get it. you go into if you make the final stage, then they'll contact you again. And I think there's more paperwork at that point that may have to get filled out for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So it's sit and wait now, basically, to see if you qualify.
And they said the cutoff date was what, March? What was it, 15th or 5th or something?
Yeah, somewhere.
In other words, if you don't hear by that date,
March.
if you don't hear by that date, then you haven't been accepted. And it's definitely geared towards small business and minorities and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't living in Louisiana make you a minority? No,
of course.
Only if you're not a crawfish.
Well, you're in Kansas. I think that would make you a minority as well. You know,
almost. We can't even be crawfish here.
You know, I mean, you're right in the middle of the country, right? I mean, you have a place there is called Centralia. Well, actually, that's in Illinois, Centralia, which is directly right in the middle of the country, I believe.
Well, actually, if you saw the Bruce Springsteen Jeep commercial, where it was filmed in Kansas, was because it's supposedly the geographic center of the continental United States.
Did anybody see him get panned on that? I mean, it seemed like that commercial got really seriously panned by a lot of people.
Really? Everything I read loved it. Said it was the best commercial of the whole broadcast.
Did you hear that he got a DWI in November?
Yeah, just read that.
Yeah, they just put it on YouTube. The whole commercial was taken off YouTube today.
Because of the DWI news? Oh, come on, are you kidding me?
Cancel culture.
Well, you got to admit that an auto manufacturer associating themselves with somebody with a DWI is a little touchy.
Hypocritical?
I don't know about that. It's Bruce Springsteen. Come on, give me a break, you know?
So what's the
boss,
tagline?
Man, he can't do anything
You're
wrong.
Drunk, drive a Jeep, and then you won't get hurt.
Yeah, it wasn't like Alec Baldwin, you know. It was, you know, it's like, you know, or what was I could just imagine the coach, you know, what was the coach's son's name? That from the Chiefs, Andy Reid, I think his name was
Ryan Reid.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he lost his endorsement from any motor vehicle company. I drive an F4 150.
Well, he also lost his paycheck.
Unbelievable.
Gotta run, guys. I might catch you back again a little bit later if you're still around. But
all right, Michael.
All right. Well, thanks for your knowledge, Michael. Take care.
So before you leave, Michael,
yeah,
have you left? You realize that it's Valentine's Day. We won't be seeing each other till after Valentine's Day. So I just wanted to know if you will be my Valentine. You know.
Yeah. Well, if I don't take care of my Valentine responsibilities, you might not see me anymore. So
nice one.
Yeah. My wife's an Italian from Boston, and she doesn't play like.
Just reminder: Grapevine Lake, Lake Louisville, White Rock Lake. They're not that deep. You would float to the surface pretty soon.
Thanks for the help, Mike. Appreciate it.
There you go. There you go.
That's love.
It's all an opinion, but it's a positive opinion. That's what I could say. You know?
Right.
So who else has got some plans for Valentine's Day? Anybody? There's no lovers in this room. Come on, there's got to be some lovers in this room. Angelo, you look like you might be a Latin lover. What the hell? What's going on?
Hey, we can't go out here in British.
Right. Yes.
Lowe's is having a Valentine's Day evening out date night at the Lowe's, painting and wine, and have an evening at Lowe's.
You mean Lowe's, like as in the hardware store?
Yes.
No, my date night is in the car wash. You know, take two to the car wash and push the slow button.
That's nice, Angelo.
So Kenny, what are you doing for Valentine's Day? How are you celebrating it?
Talking to Ken Porter, right?
No way. Okay, Ken Porter, sure.
I'm gonna sit at home and be boring.
Just told you he's going to Lowe's.
He's going to Lowe's. It's also going to be President's Day. You know, it's
the day after Valentine's Day is President's Day. So you get
that's
Valentine's
right. So,
and President's.
And it's a long weekend. So for Bill Clinton, it's like the trifecta.
And then Tuesday is Mardi Gras, which we're not having.
Oh,
yeah, Mardi Gras canceled this year.
Mardi Gras. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. What are they going to do with all those beads?
Drunk people on the street.
Well, it's been a whole thing about people decorating their houses all over. There are over 3,000 of them that have participated. Some of them are really elaborate things. You can go Google it and you'll see. It's pretty cool, actually.
Mm-hmm. So who hasn't spoken? Who hasn't said anything at all today? Hey, we got a very special guest in the room.
We do. Now, I my version of special guest may be different from yours, but in my world, there's a very special person in the room, and he was on video for a while there, but he's kind of hiding now.
Let's get him out of hiding.
I sure hope he'll turn his camera back on, and that's the amazing Tom Durr of Soundcraft console fame. I mean, Tom Durr has got to be one of the nicest guys in the sound equipment business. There's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hey.
I'm so happy to see you on here, Tom.
Yeah, just got back from picking up my dog, so good timing.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So tell us about. Yeah, where are you? Aren't you in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I'm in New Hampshire, just an hour north of Boston.
So have you been at home for months, or have you been traveling around and
No, I've been here
clients?
really since the last trip I did was down to New York City for mainly for fun. I saw a Broadway show and visited some rock and roll pals, and that's pretty much been it. I haven't been anywhere in almost a year. It's been the longest time I've been in one place for probably 20, 23 or 25 years.
That's what I was going to say. You're Mr. Travel. You're always on the go, right?
Decent amount, not as much as I used to, but yeah, it's been wild. Yeah, been here for unbelievable amount of time.
Are you servicing clients by Zoom these days?
Calls and usual stuff. We do decent. Harman does a decent amount of Zoom meetings, and there's Zoom this and Zoom that, but it's mainly just calls, emails.
Did I see that you sold Studer? No longer.
Yeah, Studer was sold to Evertz. The actual close I think happened yesterday.
No kidding, that's huge.
Yeah, it's interesting. Evertz out of Canada basically bought Studer. We don't know how much for. I mean, some people do. I don't. I don't think it was for a ton. And what their plans are with it is to be determined. They have some interest in the digital on-air console they had to integrate into some existing Evertz stuff, and we'll see what they do with Vista. But yeah, so for those who haven't heard my take on it, basically the shared technologies like the Vistonic screens, the Fader Glow, some of the other sort of unique patented things are shared between both companies. I'm not sure who has retained ownership of the intellectual property, but whoever has it grants perpetual rights for the other to develop it. So that's sort of how the split between VI and Vista will work.
Well, and I
Very
think
interesting.
it's a good fit, honestly, because I think it's a better fit for Evertz than it ever was for Samsung.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, you need to really reference Harman. People like to reference Samsung, but for the most part, Samsung's involvement with Harman Pro has been very hands-off. We're treated, very much like an independent business entity to a point. I mean, certainly at high levels, that's a different story, but in customer facing and down at my level, really.
Right. Because we all know Samsung bought it for the OE and the lifestyle stuff.
OE automotive predominantly. I think the lifestyle was sort of a secondary, sort of benefit from it.
Until they created the pandemic and everybody needed sound.
Yeah, of course. Thankfully, the diversification of Harman, while again, in recent years, weak in production for the most part, other than some of the JBL stuff, the diversification into the retail and MI market and USB mixers and small, near field monitors and all that stuff has helped buffer us during the last year. It's sort of starting to saturate a bit, but still it was it allowed us to continue sort of unabated to a certain extent, though there certainly have been cuts and things done to help.
And so you haven't been furloughed or anything like that?
No, I took a 10% pay cut for about 9 months last year. They reinstated that in January, and we all took the 401k contribution that Harman was making went away until just this last month.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it. So no, very
Not
fortunate.
so bad.
Now, normally we don't talk about product, but in this case, I will make an exception to the rule. But now a lot of the manufacturers are now, because streaming and everybody's at home, they're making USB products. Are you guys at Soundcraft doing anything USB for the house?
Yeah, I mean, not for the house, but we had like the little, $100-ish notepad mixers that have a USB stereo out, and we've had a Signature which has a multi-track and a, depending on the model, of stereo out, and they've been selling like gangbusters, and that's really true throughout the industry. I mean, all my pals who are in like recording oriented companies or home studio project, they had like record years last year. It's crazy, just the amount of stuff that either had USB or that sort of stuff that sold was is almost insatiable there for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
wait, now back up. You said something about $100-ish USB mixer made by Soundcraft. Is there such
Notepad.
a thing?
Yeah, it's just a.
What's the model? Tell me about that.
It's a notepad. There's a 5 and 8 FX and a 12 FX. It's just like, little, just a ton of people make that sort of thing, but we do as well, and we're all selling, shitloads of them.
Yeah, I thought only Behringer was the only one that had the $100.
No, there's a bunch of us that got it, but
great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people are making interfaces right now. Like, for example, Solid State Logic. I mean, could you believe it? They came out with a $200 interface, 2-channel interface. So for stereo. So I mean, who would have thought of that? I mean, they're competing now with Focusrite. I mean, so it is a viable industry right now because people are buying stuff to do Zoom meetings, and everybody wants to increase the quality of their Zoom meeting because they're doing so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, interfaces, just that whole market. Hearing sort of reports from Sweetwater and others. That whole market was just went crazy for a while. Like I said, I think it's sort of saturated now, but for 9 months or 8 months, it was just, you couldn't get enough.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, Shure is selling more SM7s than ever, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a small
mics. Crazy.
Yep.
So AKG has some mics that are popular too, right?
Yeah, like AKG had most of the companies out of the Harman portfolio, obviously went down in business, as you might expect, not as much as you might expect, but AKG actually went up partly due to the USB mic and headphones and little cheap microphones.
Amazing.
Yeah,
now,
crazy.
Okay, Ken Porter.
A lot of console manufacturers are heading toward or talking about going toward remote controlled consoles. Like the CalRec is doing one now that you can control it from master control in the truck, can be controlled on site. Are we heading that direction, or how are we?
Well,
doing
we're not anytime soon. Studer had that capability to an extent. Studer could also do remote diagnostics, and that you could sort of port in via like a VPN type line into the console and actually do configurations and diagnostics, which was sort of nice.
Now, if anybody in there, I don't know if we have anybody who knows anything about mixing consoles or speakers or engineering a live sound or anything like that, but it would just seem to me that how can you mix a show from remotely? How do you compensate for the acoustics in the room, or when people move in? How does that happen? I mean, I could see lighting, but I can't see sound doing that. How does that happen?
Very poorly.
I knew it.
Very poorly.
Well, the first shot was it's TV, when they're doing all this basically harvesting stuff on, out in the site for football games and baseball and hockey and all that stuff there. And then it's coming to master control to be mixed down. So they're controlling what's there mixed on site and then coming in. So you have an A2 that pretty much patches everything in, and then it's mixed, final edited and stuff there to broadcast.
Right, but that's exactly why the Super Bowl halftime show generally sounds like crap this year included. You like that,
Okay.
Jake? You like how I
well,
brought it
let's
right
put it
back
this
to the
way.
agenda?
Let's put it this way. The first 3 songs, I could hardly hear the vocals. Does anybody have anything that they want to say about that?
No,
Anybody?
it's because
I couldn't hear.
They're mixing it in the truck, and they're mixing for broadcast. They're not mixing for live. So by the time they realize something's wrong, the halftime show's over.
Well,
that would be
according to Robert Scoville, that what we that didn't hear a good thing heard was because we were not set to the right decoder setting on our decoder of our TV or listening device. I couldn't find the right setting on mine, but I was scrolling through the different settings, and I was going to ask Robert which one he landed on because I couldn't find the right one. Maybe he has some better one because he has a tendency to have better equipment. But the point is, he blamed it on decoding. In other words, they're listening to 5.1 in their control room, and we're listening to 3.1 or 2.1 in our home, and it's just not working. He blamed it on that.
That's pretty ridiculous. I mean, for anybody to mix a show of that stature without listening to a 2-track mix at the same time makes no sense.
I'll look up and see what mine was set to. I watched, that was the only part of the Super Bowl I actually listened to. I turned on my Onkyo. It was set on Dolby Pro Logic or whatever it was. Sounded fine to me. And then all of a sudden I get on Facebook and people are just
ranting like crazy. Yeah.
And then somebody posted a YouTube video of the stereo down mix, and it was horrible. So I understand what people are talking about.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I have a nice stereo in my house, and I just thought there was something wrong with my TV all of a sudden, but because it didn't make any sense. But then after the third song, I started calling people and texting people, "Hey, is it just me? Is it just me?" But no, it was everybody. So the reality is something had to go wrong. They couldn't possibly have just left it to decoding, because I haven't had a decoder ring since I was a kid. I don't even know where it is.
Robert was saying, what's it called, Fred, when it's 5.1 and then it's decoded or whatever down to 2?
Down mix.
Down mixing.
Yeah, that thing. It was just not translating properly.
Well, a lot of people I asked the question to, I said, where were you watching it? And they said DirecTV or a cable company or whatever. I watched off air. So I got the best picture and the best sound.
Yeah, you got the most pure thing, yeah.
Exactly.
And I watched it over the over-air antenna TV because I was at work, so I just brought my TV in and hooked up to a HD antenna, and that's how we watched it, and we could hardly hear the singer. We heard the musicians and the backup singers more than we heard the lead singer.
Yeah.
What kind of sound system though, Josh?
It was just the speakers right off the TV. It was like
so that's the problem.
TV.
That's the problem. The TV was doing the down mix for you. I actually listened to it on a 5.1 receiver. I turned the TV off, the sound off of the TV, and listened to the optical output from the TV, and it sounded fine.
Yeah.
I had the same, and it was okay, but it wasn't great.
All right, Tom, what were you saying?
No, I was on a stereo mix right off from a Comcast cable feed, and just to the sound bar. Sounded fine to me. I didn't even know there was an issue till now.
Yeah, the first 3 songs were the vocals were buried.
Is what those were songs? I don't know.
It was like he couldn't feel his
these
face.
days. What is that crap?
I didn't even know who the guy was.
Well, that's the interesting thing.
A lot of people the weekend's 15 minutes of previous fame because I got severely taken to task for not knowing who The Weeknd was. I just thought he was another spelling challenged entertainer.
Listen, there's been no halftime show worth watching since Prince 2007. So just tell the kids that they can go watch that show, watch it over and over again. Best halftime show.
There were some that were okay, but nothing compares to Prince. Yeah, nothing compares to that.
I don't know. I liked the Lady Gaga one. I thought she was great.
It was great, but it wasn't Prince.
I thought the best one was I thought the best one was the J-Lo Shakira one so far in my book.
The Who in New Orleans was really good too.
Yeah. Here's a question for the group. I think in Robert's group, somebody mentioned Dave Natale doing the PA mix in the stadium. Anybody know who did the PA mix in the stadium for that?
I don't know if it was Dave, but I guarantee it wasn't what we heard on TV then.
Well, of course it wasn't that,
You know who would know? Probably the people from A2K.
Of course, ATK guys would know. Yeah, Raul. I thought that's who said that was Raul.
Yeah, Raul
Yeah, he
said
did.
who was the name of the person who was doing it.
All right. Well, we have a homework assignment. We'll figure that out. You know.
It was just a curious thing because only 22,000 people heard that anyway, and millions of people heard the air mix, and the air mix was done in the Music Mix Mobile, right? The Joel whatever his last name is, Joel's truck was doing that, and it was probably John Harris probably mixing the air mix, right? But the thing is, I just was curious because somebody in some group online was saying that it was probably a Digico console doing the PA mix, and I thought, really, Dave Natale on a Digico console? I thought he was totally anti-digital.
I'd say Dave still carries his own PM4000. Last I heard.
True that too and I thought they must have dug up a PM4000 for Dave to use.
We got to get Chris Leonard in the room. I'm sure he would know.
Dave owns his own 4K. Yeah, Dave owns his own 4K.
Oh, is that
there's
right?
not a question of digging one up. He has one.
Oh, is that right?
It stays with him when he's not on the road with it.
Does he have racks and racks of outboard gear too, Tim?
One rack.
I'm sure since it was on CBS, it passed through the broadcast truck. So it went through a cow rack on one of the paths, and probably one of the older paths probably was still using the Dolby equipment. The CBS still specs the Dolby encoders on their transmission paths.
But I thought those trucks had all Lao consoles. That was mixing a Lao, I thought.
I'm pretty sure Calrec for most of those trucks.
Yeah, the music truck may have been allowed, but the broadcast trucks are pretty much all cow racks these days.
Hey, Fred, seeing you're the only one that's working right now, or it appears you're working, either that or you've got great virtual reality going on. Tell us a little bit about the show you're doing right now.
I wasn't. Like I said, I was a backup. I'm sitting at the San Diego airport waiting to go home.
Oh, you're done with the gig. Well, what was the gig? What was the gig? Was it some sporting event?
Yeah, it's a college basketball game. It'll be on tonight on CBS Sports Network. San Diego State versus whoever.
Oh, so they sent you home as soon as the other guy was okay, huh?
Yeah, he showed up to the venue and tested okay, and so I'm released to go home.
How interesting.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, because I thought you were working because the roof system looks almost like the same as the roof system in the studio that you were in.
Yeah, it does look like the same the contact. No, I'm at the airport. There's lots of people around.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to remind you that it is President's Day coming up, and it's an interesting thing. Of course, George Washington was known for his honesty, and it's Honest Abe, And so this story I tell every year, and if you've never heard it before, you're going to hear it for the first time. But there was this immigrant that came to America. And he got very, very wealthy. And when he got here and made all his money, he built a mansion just like it was in the old country. And just to be just like in the old country, he built an outhouse as well with a great view of the land. And one day he called his 3 kids into the room and he wanted to know, hey, which one of you kids pushed the outhouse over the cliff? And nobody said anything. And so he says, listen, let me tell you something. My favorite president of all time was George Washington. And George Washington, when he was a kid, he chopped down his cherry tree. And when his father came over and said, George, did you chop down the cherry tree? George said, yes, Dad, I can't tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree. And George Washington's father was so proud of him, he didn't do anything. Now, which one of you 3 pushed the outhouse over the cliff? So the little one raises his hand, and the father leans back and slaps him across the face. And the kid said, Dad, you said George Washington, blah, blah, blah. He told the truth, and his father didn't do anything. Why did you hit me? And his father says, that's because George Washington's father wasn't in the cherry tree when he chopped it down. So if you haven't heard that one, you could share it with the group. Anyway.
All right. And on that note, Let's go off the air. That'll take us off the air.
No, that'll take us off the air. I want to thank everybody for watching. We're going to stay in the room for as long as people want to stay. Remember, you can join us by sending in a DM or an email or call anybody in the room. Anybody can invite you. We send out a bunch of emails and invites you, so you're all welcome. Just remember, everything you heard today was an opinion, whether it's true or not. That's up to you to figure it out. And I will leave you with this. Stay safe and healthy, and happy Valentine's Day. Happy President's Day. And remember, you make it happen. So click the like button, share the links, and we really appreciate everything that you've come to share with us. And I hope you all learned something today as well, because I know I did. So again, thanks for coming. And we're going to go off the air right now.
But don't, because you're going to miss all the good stuff if you don't sign up and get on the Zoom meeting next time. Oh man.